American dream. It's the idea that if you work hard and play by the rules, you can achieve a better life for yourself and your family. You work hard, you play by the rules, and you buy a house. It's a symbol of success and stability. It's the cornerstone of middle-class life, right? A place to call your own where you can raise your kids and build memories. Well, hold on to your hats, folks, because that dream is starting to look more like a nightmare. The reality is shifting, and not in a good way. Owning a home has always been seen as a path to stability, a way to build wealth. It's been a cornerstone of the American dream for generations, but for many Americans that path is getting rockier by the day. The hurdles are becoming higher and more difficult to overcome. The housing market is in a state of flux, and not the good kind. It's a turbulent time with many uncertainties. The perfect storm of rising interest rates, inflated home prices, and stagnant wages is making it nearly impossible for many families to afford a place to live. It's a crisis that's affecting millions. We're not just talking about luxury mansions here, folks. This is about modest homes in everyday neighborhoods. This is about average, hard-working Americans struggling to keep a roof over their heads. People who have done everything right but are still finding it hard to make ends meet. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about real people's lives. It's about families facing eviction and the stress that comes with financial instability. Families are being priced out of their own neighborhoods, forced to make impossible choices between paying the mortgage or putting food on the table. It's a heartbreaking reality. The American dream is slipping through their fingers, and frankly, it's time we started paying attention. We need to address this issue before it's too late. Remember the good old days when you could snag a mortgage rate under 4%? Those were the times when buying a home felt like a dream within reach for many families. Yeah, those days are gone, and they're not coming back anytime soon. The landscape of the housing market has changed dramatically. Mortgage rates have been on a tear recently, shooting up faster than a rocket on the 4th of July. It's been a wild ride for anyone looking to buy a home. We're talking about the highest rates we've seen in over 2 decades. It's a stark contrast to the low rates we enjoyed not too long ago. To put things in perspective, let's take a trip down memory lane. Remember the early 2000s? The housing market was booming and mortgage rates were relatively low. Back in the early 2000s, you could snag a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage for around 7%. Not bad, right? It was a time when homeownership was more accessible. Well, fast forward to today, and you're looking at rates well above that. The cost of borrowing has skyrocketed, making it harder for people to afford homes. That's a significant jump, folks, and it's having a ripple effect throughout the entire housing market. The impact is being felt by everyone, from buyers to sellers. This surge in mortgage rates is like throwing gasoline on an already raging fire. It's exacerbating an already challenging situation for many. It's making it significantly more expensive to borrow money to buy a home, which is pricing out potential buyers and putting a strain on current homeowners. The dream of homeownership is slipping away for many. The simple fact is, when borrowing money costs more, people can afford to borrow less. This means tighter budgets and more financial stress for families. And in the world of real estate, that means fewer people can afford to buy homes. The market is cooling off and the effects are being felt across the board. So, mortgage rates are up. This is something that has been making headlines for quite some time now. But hey, at least home prices are coming down, right? You'd think that higher rates would cool the market. Wrong. The median home price in the United States has been climbing steadily for years, and it's showing no signs of slowing down. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We're talking about an increase of over 40% in the past decade alone. That's a staggering number when you think about it. Let that sink in for a moment. 40%. It's almost unbelievable. This relentless rise in home values is being fueled by a perfect storm of factors. Low inventory, high demand, and let's not forget the role of good old-fashioned speculation. It's a complex web. It's a classic case of too much money chasing too few houses. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. And as long as this trend continues, the dream of homeownership will remain just that, a dream for millions of Americans. It's a harsh reality. The problem is, wages haven't kept pace with this meteoric rise in home prices. This creates a significant gap. In fact, for many Americans, wages have remained stagnant. This stagnation is a major issue. So while the cost of housing has been skyrocketing, the ability of many Americans to afford that housing has remained the same. It's a troubling paradox. Now, we'll talk about the real kicker, those monthly mortgage payments. With interest rates and home prices both on the rise, it's no surprise that mortgage payments have reached eye-popping levels. We're talking about an average monthly payment of over $2,000 for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. That's a significant chunk of change, folks, and it's putting a serious strain on household budgets across the country. But it's not just the principal and interest that are eating into people's paychecks. Don't forget about property taxes, homeowners insurance, and those pesky HOA fees. These added expenses can quickly turn that dream home into a financial albatross. And as these costs continue to rise, more and more families are finding themselves struggling to keep up. The affordability gap: income versus housing costs. Here's a fun fact that's not so fun. The gap between what the average American family earns and what it costs to buy a home is wider than ever before. We're talking about an affordability crisis of epic proportions. In many major cities, the median home price is now 8 to 10 times the median household income. This means that for many working families, buying a home is simply out of reach. They're stuck in a perpetual cycle of renting, unable to build equity or achieve the financial stability that comes with homeownership. And as this affordability gap continues to widen, it's creating a generation of renters who may never experience the benefits of owning their own home. The implications of this are far-reaching. When homeownership becomes a privilege reserved for the wealthy, it exacerbates existing inequalities and undermines the very fabric of the American dream. Foreclosures and cash deals, a disturbing trend. Remember the housing crisis of 2008? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because we're starting to see some eerily familiar trends. Foreclosures are on the rise again, as more and more homeowners find themselves unable to keep up with their mortgage payments. But here's the real kicker. A growing number of homes are being snapped up by cash buyers, often large corporations. These companies are swooping in, scooping up properties at bargain prices, and turning them into rental units. While this might seem like a good deal for renters in the short term, it's actually contributing to a long-term decline in homeownership. This trend of corporate landlords buying up properties has far-reaching consequences. It reduces the supply of affordable homes for sale, drives up rents, and concentrates more and more housing wealth in the hands of a few powerful corporations. It's a recipe for a future where owning a home is a luxury reserved for the elite. Corporate landlords, the rise of rental empires. Remember when your landlord was just some guy named Bob who lived down the street? Well, those days are going the way of the dinosaurs. Increasingly, the companies buying up these foreclosed homes and turning them into rentals are not your friendly neighborhood landlords. We're talking massive corporations with names you probably recognize. These companies are treating housing like any other commodity, buying up properties, squeezing out profits, and often neglecting necessary repairs. They're not invested in the community, they're invested in their bottom line. And as they acquire more and more properties, they're gaining unprecedented control over the housing market. This consolidation of power in the hands of a few corporations raises serious concerns about affordability, accountability, and the future of homeownership. When corporations control the housing supply, they control who has access to safe, affordable housing and at what cost. Insurance nightmares adding fuel to the fire. As if rising mortgage rates and skyrocketing home prices weren't enough, homeowners are now facing another threat: insurance nightmares. Insurance companies are pulling out of certain states, refusing to renew policies, or jacking up premiums to astronomical levels. This is partly due to the increasing frequency and severity of natural disasters, but it's also a result of the insurance industry's own financial woes. Whatever the reason, it's a disaster for homeowners who are now left vulnerable to financial ruin in the event of a fire, flood, or other catastrophe. This insurance crisis adds another layer of complexity and uncertainty to the already precarious state of homeownership. It's a stark reminder that the dream of owning a home can quickly turn into a nightmare if you're not financially prepared for the unexpected. So, where do we go from here? The future of homeownership in America is at a crossroads. The current trajectory is simply unsustainable. We need real solutions to address the affordability crisis, curb corporate greed, and ensure that the American dream remains within reach for all. This isn't just about individual responsibility, it's about systemic change. We need government policies that promote affordable housing, protect homeowners from predatory lending practices, and rein in the excesses of the corporate housing market. We need to demand better from our elected officials and hold them accountable for creating a system that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few. The American dream is fading, but it's not gone yet. It's time to wake up, speak out, and fight for the future we deserve.